Hi folks, my name is Mike Dobbs. I'm your host here for Government Matters, and thanks for joining us for another episode. It's our pleasure and privilege today to sit down with, and I got permission to say this, so don't send letters and emails complaining about it, to Police Chief Larry Akers. He gave me permission to call him Chief because when I say superintendent, I always think of school superintendent, and I knew I was going to mess it up at some point during this discussion. So Chief, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me here today.
How long have you been on the Springfield Police Force?
I'm in my 39th year.
Okay, so you, sir, is what I call a wily vet. You've been on the job a very long time. You've risen through the ranks, and you're a Springfield born and bred resident, correct?
Born and raised right here in the city.
Okay, so first of all, I want to get a sense for folks about where the police department stands now. A lot of times we see stories about police departments in the valley understaffed or not up to the complement that they have budgeting for. And I'm just wondering, are we looking for more officers at this point? How is the department staffed? Do you feel comfortable with it?
Well, we're always looking for good people to come in and join our police force. Our numbers are a little lower than I would like it to be, but at this time we have 49 people in an academy ready to hit the streets in May. And I think we started out with about 56. We've lost 7 or so. And I think that's probably one of the largest academies we've had in many years. I think it's a national problem to where people aren't coming to be police officers like they used to. I know when I came on, and many years, just even recent years, you may have 1,500, 2,000 people applying, and now that's probably in, a couple, 300 people. So our department, we're doing okay. We have few less bodies than I would like, but we're trying to make up for that. And the mayor has also given me the leeway to where if we can get the people, go and get them, and he would open up the budget a little bit to try to make our streets a little safer.
And when you say this is a national trend, is this, I know the whole George Floyd incident affected police morale in many places. It affected how people look at police. Do you think incidents like that have discouraged people from becoming police officers?
I do. I mean, I think that a lot of our younger people now with social media, and, there's a lot of things in social media that are false, and I think a lot of people have a false understanding of what policing is all about. If you're a good person and you know how to treat people with integrity and respect, and you're professional at your job, this is a great job. Because I came on in 1986. I raised a family, with this job, and, it's not a bad paying job. We do have a lot of things that we have to go through that are very trying. But if you know how to treat people, I think you'll get through this career just fine. And I try to tell our youth that the things you see on TV sometime or on social media, they're not always true. And they sometimes shed a dim light on policing. And I would like to bring that light out in this, to explain what it really is all about.
Now, do you advocate for applicants to have a college degree like in criminal justice or some associated law enforcement degree?
Well, I advocated for it, because it helps you in your career. I think, first of all, if you have that degree, it gives you a little bit more understanding of what policing is all about and what the law is all about, but it's not necessary. You can actually come on this job with a GED. And the more you educate yourself, it reflects in your pay.
Okay. So you have not yet reached, you're close to it, your first anniversary as chief. In this past year, were there things that confronted you that maybe were unexpected, or were the challenges that any urban police department faces the challenges that you faced?
Well, I think a lot of the challenges I face are internal. You know, trying to make sure that I make sure that my officers understand the direction that I'm trying to bring the police department. I want them to understand that, you know, I care about them. I care about each and every one of them. And sometimes I have to make those hard decisions when things aren't going the right way. And I want them to understand there's nothing personal, but we're all on one team. Just because I am, you know, the head of the police department, it doesn't mean I'm not still a police officer. So I'm on their team also. And it comes from years of people, even within a department, they see things a certain way, and it's hard to break that mold, to let them know, no, things are different now. You know, I'm all about fairness. And I think that has been one of the most difficult things to get across to some of the people that have had their mind made up about the way the police department is. But I think I'm making way, and I think that, you know, I'm starting to get my word across there, and I want people to understand that this is the way we have to do it. You know, we're here to serve and protect. You know, we're not just here to come and make a dollar. We're here to take care of the people in our community. And if you do that, you go out and you do your job, and you do it well, it's just going to be a great job. You never even see me. The external things, I don't think I've run into a lot that I didn't expect, because coming up through the ranks and being on the police department for such a long period of time, I've seen just about everything. You know, I don't expect anything, and I don't expect anything, but I expect everything. You know, so the external stuff, I'll get out there in the community like I always do. People have problems. I don't mind speaking face to face. Let's talk it out. Let's find out what your issues are. If I can help you at all, I'm going to be out there helping you. If not, I'll try to find someone that can. So right now, I'm very busy. I'm still drinking out of a high-pressured fire hose, you know, but that's okay. I expected that when I came on, and I welcome that.
You know, when we went to ward representation on our city council, one thing that was talked about was that we finally have a city council that looks like the city. We have whites, blacks, and Latinos on the city council. It looks like the city. Is that a kind of goal for you, that the police department looks like the city, that the diversity of the officers reflects the diversity of our community?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to say that I want, our our department to look any certain way, but I think it's very important that we do look like the city. I mean, I do believe that our city is broken down somewhat equally. You know, I believe maybe we have 51% white, 22% black, and maybe 38% Latino. And that's about what our police department actually is more persons of color right now than there are white. And I think we are the only, and I don't want to speak out of place, but I think that we're the most diverse department in the Commonwealth. So, and I think it's a good thing. I think that it's good for people to see people that they feel they can relate to, because no matter what we say, I mean, you can go into any room and you could have a very diverse crowd, and then when everyone's seated at the table, you still see that separation. You know, you see this group with this group, that group with that group, so we can't get away from that. So I think that it's out there. We should be able to at least let people see people that they feel they can relate to on our job.
I live here in the city. I've lived since 1990 in Maple Eye Six Corners. That's where my wife and I bought a house. There was a point where we had what was called community policing, where there were officers that were actually assigned to particular neighborhoods. And I was on the neighborhood council at that time, and we had an officer who attended our meetings just to listen to people, just what's their concerns. And having that kind of direct contact with a member of the department, I think, in my uneducated position as just a resident, was really good, because it was like there was a definite face, a definite person who knew what was going on in the neighborhood. And I know that community policing still exists, but it exists in a different way. How do you feel about community policing, and what is your approach to it?
I think community policing is great. I want people because, as I said, I'm a community engaged person. You know, I try to be out in the community as much as possible, but we still have that. Like you said, it's a little different, but we still have our community policing, and it's through our Neighborhood Stabilization Bureau, which are our C3 units, our C3 Metro unit, to where we still have community engagement. We have over 319 meetings a year with communities in every different community through our C3 meetings or our beat management meetings. It's still there. And a lot of people that attend these meetings, they still have a face. They still have someone that comes to these meetings. They get to know them, to see what's going on. Now, it's not as widespread as it was, but I'm working on that. And that's exactly why I brought in the Neighborhood Stabilization Unit, to where each community used to just have their own unit. C3 North would be in the north end. C3 South is in the south end, so on and so forth. What I've done is combined everything. So if we may be short resources in the north, well, someone from the south will be coming over and taking that person's place. If there's something very serious going on in Mason Square, then people from all the other C3 units will come in and assist the people with Mason Square. That way that the residents have more coverage, they get to see people, and I'm trying to expand out when we get the resources. When I say that the Academy graduates, hopefully I'll be able to even put someone further out, like in Indian Orchard. Not that we don't serve them now, because they still have their people out there, but we want to do a better job in just putting people in every area of the city.
Well, certainly I think that just having that visible presence, the face, we can't go back to the era in which the cop is walking a beat through a neighborhood, because that's not really practical in terms of staffing. But having police officers who get to know a neighborhood really well, and again, in my viewpoint as just as a resident, I think is really, really positive, because I think it bridges some gaps of information. You know, you don't make assumptions as much as you might, because you actually know someone and you've got to know what they're about and what they want to do. One thing that has been a constant in the last few years has been the idea of the quality of life issues in Springfield. And I know that police officers have been assigned to this duty, and they handle stuff that, you know, it's not exciting crime. It's, you got a neighbor who plays his music too loud at 3 o'clock in the morning, or you've got a neighbor that's got a dog that obviously is being mistreated and won't shut up barking, or that type of thing. But that really, that really is part of our life in Springfield as a resident. And do you see that unit expanding, or is it? Do you think it's adequately staffed right now to address the issues that come into the department?
Well, first I want to back up to something you said just a little bit earlier. You spoke on how the officer walking the beat and, is no longer, we just can't do it anymore. Well, I actually did put that back into play. So just this past summer, and we started out in Indian Orchard, to where we had some walking beats out there. We have park and walks, what we call park and walks, to where the officers in these sectors that are assigned to the sector, the black and whites that you see driving around, during a certain part of their shift, they have to park their cars and get out and walk the neighborhoods, speak to people, let people know that they're out there. So we just started it this summer, and as the spring rolls in and the weather gets a little bit nicer and stuff, you're going to see more people, because I'm going to put more people out there on the walking post. Not only the park and walks, but also the walking posts. So you're going to see it. So even though our resources aren't what they used to be, I'm going to do whatever I can, because I think it's important for people to know the officer, not the uniform. Because if someone just comes up and takes a report from you, jumps out of a cruiser, then jumps back in it and leave, you never get to know that officer. Right. All you do is get to know the uniform. I want people to know the officer, and that's the only way you can get to do it, is get out there, walk amongst the people, and talk to them so they feel a little more comfortable. And to follow up on what you were saying, the ordinance unit, we do a good job with the amount of people we have in the ordinance unit. What I think for the type of calls that you talk about, I think it shows a lot about the diversity of the city also, because different cultures, they live differently.
Right.
You know, and because now you have different cultures moving into other areas where maybe someone's not used to it, you know, they live differently. Maybe they do play their music a little bit louder, and the person who's been there, they're like, oh, whoa, time out, we don't do that here. But, well, here is now changing. So I would like to just educate all of our officers, instead of just saying, I'm going to pump up that unit with resources. I would just like all the officers that are out there anyway, just to understand the quality of life issues out there. So we don't have to depend on any certain unit. We just know your friendly police officer every day can handle that.
Right.
You know, you see him driving by, wave him down and say, you know, I have a little issue here. That's what I'd like to get it to.
Okay.
You know, so, you know, a lot of people say I'm a little old school, and I am, because I think a lot of the old school things, they may not work tactically in some situations, but people are still people. We're human beings, and we still like certain things. And to be in contact with your local police department, I think is one of them, and I'm going to try to make that happen.
Absolutely. Yes. Especially in this digital age where everything is being done remote. This is one thing that you really do need, that person-to-person connection, I think, for it to actually work well.
Yes. I ask a lot of people, they say, they'll call and say, hey, this person's doing this person's doing that. And I go, did you talk to him? You know, it's your neighbor. You know, did you ask him not to do that, or did you talk? And, you know, we have people that will call their brother or sister, you know, 3,000 miles away in California to complain about something, instead of walking right next door and talking, because that's just the way, that's where we've come. It's the same with policing. You know, we many times we're busy. You know, we're moving. We're always going from one call to the next. But at the same time, what that does, it keeps you from the people that you're actually out there to serve and protect. You know, we can't do that. You know what I mean? The radios, and, you know, we ride around in that, you know, 1,000-pound vehicle that you know, with the windows rolled up, listening to the radio, going from call to call. That's not good. That's too much of a separation of the police and the community. We have to get back here. We have to get back to where there's actually a personal contact.
So let me ask you about something that, unfortunately, I'm sure dominates a fair amount of your thoughts, and that's budgeting. You know, right now, do you feel that we have adequate budget facilities for the department? And, you know, this isn't to slam the city in any way. It's the reality of what the city can give you and what the state gives you and what kind of federal programs are available. So how are we on budget issues?
Budget issues, we're doing pretty good right now with the police department. Now, as things change, policing is expensive. You know, and I'm always going, and I just had a conversation with our CFO this morning about more funding that I'm looking for, because we want to better our technology, and we want to better see, and this is what people are calling for. You know, this is what DOJ calls for. I mean, we need to spend money in order to come up to par. You know, when I would say within the last 5, 6 years, maybe even 10 years, it seemed like we were so far behind a lot of other departments, you know, with our, you know, let's just say our crime analysis center, our TAC, you know, we seem like we were so far behind, but we've built that up to where now we are one of the departments people look at and say, hey, we want to go to Springfield and see exactly what they're doing. We're playing catch up, and we've surpassed many departments in the things that we do, but that's expensive. And you have to find the money somewhere. So, you know, I'm not into the budget that much. I mean, I'm very aware of what my budget is, and I try to help. You know, my financial director helps me a lot. But I think that we're doing pretty good. I think that the mayor is pretty much on board with knowing that the police department, we got to spend a lot of money sometime to get things done properly, because if we don't spend it on this end, we'll be spending it on lawsuits on the other end, and that's what I'm trying to get us away from.
So let's talk about perception versus reality. I have spent a good chunk of the last 20, well, over the 22 years I was at the Reminder, fighting the perception among my colleagues, my suburban colleagues, that Springfield was quote unquote dangerous. People would say to me, how can you go down to an event in downtown Springfield at night? I said, because it's no big deal. There's this perception that won't go away, that Springfield is a dangerous community. I personally don't think that it's a dangerous community, but crime statistics sort of reflect all that. Have our crime stats improved in the last few years? Do you see forward movement in the right direction?
I do. I mean, we're up and down. We are the city in Western Mass. So I think people, I understand their feeling, because if you come from one of our adjoining towns, you probably don't have the ills that we have in Springfield, because we have 150,000 plus people, and you may have 3,000 people. So yes, I understand their concern, but our crime statistics, this year we're probably down a couple percent overall. Our homicide rate is down 45%. Last year, I believe we had 31 or 32 homicides. This year we had 17, of which 13 were cleared or solved. One homicide is too many. Right. I wish that we did not have any homicides in our city. But reality is we do have a city. We live in a city, and we're going to have our city ills. We're no more dangerous than anyone else. But I've had people come to me and say the same thing. Oh my goodness, it's such a dangerous. I said, no, if you're not involved in the dangerous activity, most of the time, you never even realize there's any dangerous activity going on. And that's anywhere. I mean, and I'm not going to mention any towns, surrounding towns, but any town you go to, you're going to have some type of a dangerous situation at one time or another. It's just you just don't have the volume because you don't have the amount of people, that's all. Right.
Well, I'm a big Springfield booster. I love the city, and yes, we have our challenges, but frankly, I would never characterize us as dangerous. And considering the number of people that come into the city, whether it's to go to the Quadrangle, to one of the museums, or whether it's to go to MGM, I think we're doing pretty damn well in terms of maintaining a safe environment. That's just my perception as a resident.
We do, and your perception is my perception also. I mean, you're correct. To say that we're dangerous, no, we are not dangerous. Like I said, we do have our city hills like anyone else, but it is not a dangerous city. And if you're just coming in and you're just going to events and you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're usually never going to even, you're not going to know the difference from anywhere else. But when you hear it on the news and social media, you see certain things. Naturally, most of the crime that they speak about is about Springfield, right? Because that's where the city is. We are the city, and that's it. But no, we are not a dangerous city.
Let's talk a moment about the Department of Justice consent decree, which came out, if I remember correctly, in 2020. It outlined some issues within the police department that the DOJ wanted to see corrected. Can you give us a little status report on how that's going?
I can. We are doing a great job. And the way it's set up is once the agreement was approved, I should say, it's a 5-year program. And our first 3 years would be coming into compliance with all of the issues that we agreed to. So say, for instance, our record keeping, our use of force the way that we documented use of force and things like that, our internal investigations unit, those things we draw up new policies for. And, you know, the DOJ and our compliance evaluation team would look at those policies and they would say, yes, I agree with that, or we think this should be added, this, that, and the other, and then we'd start negotiating again about it. Well, at this time, where our 3-year period is due to be up in about April of this year, and we are well on our way to making that come to fruition. It is going to happen. We have been working hard. Our numbers of complaints have plummeted. We don't have the volume of complaints that we used to have. And a lot of that has to do with body-worn cameras, to where even if a complaint comes in, a lot of times it's not really what people say. And it's also on the other side with police officers who wear those cameras. We're well aware that everything is being recorded. So if there was any improper techniques that were used in the past, they're mindful to make sure that that does not happen, which in fact changes how a police officer does things. And a lot of people are very angry that the DOJ came in, and I can't say I'm very happy that any department, especially one that I eventually became in charge of, but the DOJ did us some good too. It brought us into the 21st century. You know, it opened our eyes to some of the things that may have been happening that maybe we didn't recognize, you know. And once again, it's helped us update our use of force policies, our record-keeping policies, and just many other things. And we're better off for it right now. So whether or not you like the DOJ, they're here. I swore to work with them, and I'm going to continue working with them. But I think that we're probably much further ahead than they would have expected at this time. And I foresee an announcement sometime in the very near future that is going to be very positive for the city of Springfield and the Springfield Police Department.
So do you think that this whole process has made this a better department then?
I do, in many areas. I say we've always had a good department. Now, I wasn't part of the negotiations with the DOJ and stuff. That started before I was in position here. But, you know, we've always had good people in the police department. We always did a good job in the police department. But we were lacking in areas, you know, just like every other police department is around the country. Sometimes it takes an outsider to come in and to point those things out. And we need people working within the police department that get on board with it, you know, and understand, because we can't just do it piecemeal. We have to do it all the way. And if if there's something that needs correcting and we have people that know how to correct it, everyone has to get on board. And I think that we've done that for the most part. You're never going to get 100%, and no matter what you do. But I think that we've done a great job doing it. And yes, I think it has made this department a better place for everyone.
Chief, thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll have you in the future because I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
Yes.
But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
And folks, thanks once more for giving us a chance, telling you about what's happening here in the city of Springfield, right here on Government Matters on Focus Springfield.